Okay, guys, so it's being recorded from now on. And before we start, I just want to let you know that this webinar has been organized for the weekly fasting group members, but we also have a few guests with us today. And the weekly fasting group is a big international community operating on WhatsApp, on the platform on WhatsApp. And our goal is to cultivate the habit of fasting for 24 hours every week. So that's the only common denominator in this group. So this group is united around this thing. And some people do it for cleansing reasons. Some people do it for spiritual reasons. Other people do it just to practice self-discipline. So it's a really open-minded group. No other agenda other than that. So we don't have any dietary guidelines for the group. We don't have any spiritual guidelines. So everyone has to follow their own heart. And every week we try to invite an interesting speaker from different background, different points of view on philosophy, on diet, on lifestyle. And we are just chatting, we are just having friendly conversation. We are learning, we are open-minded, we are learning. We don't need to agree with everything that each speaker says. We need to see how it applies to our lives. And so if those ideas appeal to you and you are watching this video later on, you will find my phone number, my WhatsApp number. My name is Arik. I am the moderator for this group. You're welcome to send me a WhatsApp message with your name, and I will happily add you if you want to cultivate this habit of fasting for 24 hours a week and get all the links to our weekly webinars and to participate. Yeah, so now, guys, I just want to tell you, guys who are present here and who will be watching it later on, that I won't be fasting with you for the next 2 weeks because I'm undergoing some dental treatment right now. You might even see that my cheek is a little bit swollen, and I need to take certain medicines along with food. So I will have this 2 weeks of a break, and I just want to tell you that keep your teeth well cleaned and healthy. It's also important because now I neglected my teeth hygiene, and today I have to undergo many procedures that are not so nice. So if you see, if you notice different phenomena such as like gum pockets or breath that is not nice or painful teeth or something like that, don't neglect it. You know, if you neglect it, it just gets worse. So it was just important because I'm now in this situation. It's really important for me to convey this message to everyone. So don't get to this state. Keep your teeth healthy. Very important. Okay, so that was my brief introduction. And now, today we have Dr. Stephen Stern. So welcome, Stephen.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and actually, we will be covering many subjects today because Dr. Stephen Stern has a lot of wisdom to share about chiropractic, about nutrition, about family, cultivating relationships, and many other subjects. So we are just going to have a friendly conversation, and we'll also ask questions of our chat members, and we will see where it leads. So, Stephen, tell us a little bit about the definition of chiropractic, because I myself, I have quite a vague idea about what it is, what's the purpose of it, and stuff like that.
Sure. So the chiropractors believe that the body is extraordinary capacity to heal itself. We use a phrase that the power that made the body heals the body. And just like an infant that's growing from a fetus into quadrillions of cells, that power that allows that baby to be evolved like that is happening in all of us as long as we're breathing, as long as we're alive. Our body is healing in some level. And the key conduit in chiropractic, we focus on the nervous system because that helps control and coordinate what the body does. There's a flow or energy that flows through the body that allows the body to be well. And we use a term called vitalism instead of mechanism. vitalism, the whole is much greater than the sum of its parts, rather than just trying to fix a part of the body. So when we work with the nervous system, it allows the body to express more of its vitality, more of its essence of who we are. That flow of life forces flowing through the body gets expressed in a more dynamic way. So that's the essence of chiropractic. And in chiropractor, there's many different styles, and I compare it to music. I play guitar, I love playing the blues, and I'm really good at that. But I can't play classical, I can't play, jazz that well. Well, in chiropractors, there's different styles. Some styles are much more aggressive or bolder than other styles, and other styles are more subtle, more. Sometimes I touch people no harder than this when I'm working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like comparing James Taylor's style guitar to Jimi Hendrix. Both are great, both are fine, and if a person resonates with that style really well, the people who come to them will really like what that chiropractor does. So that's kind of the big view of chiropractic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what is the name of your particular style? Does it have a school? Does it have a certain system by which you are working?
Well, I've been in practice just about 40 years, and right now I'm just doing me. I've learned so much over the years. There's a certain foundation that I work off. It's called network spiral analysis. That's kind of a foundation that I studied for many years. But basically, I don't practice it the way it's taught now. I kind of take, what I've learned from different areas, and I just integrate it in how I do it. I work very intuitively at this point. It's not very mechanistic. It's not coming from my head. I feel things in my body and my heart, and my hands tell me where to go, and my patients seem to like that.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, so we'll get back to the chiropractic question later on, because we also have some questions from the chat members about that. But I wanted to ask you now, let's go to the dieting part, the parts of diet. So you mentioned that since relatively young age, you were attracted to different food philosophies and food practices such as mucusless diet, veganism, and other things in this field. Now, my question is, before we delve into that, initially, when you were very young, what brought you on this path of trying to improve your body, to cleanse your body? What made you interested? Because billions of people are not so interested in those things. How was it in your case?
Well, I was born in 1950, and I grew up eating the typical standard American diet, and I was always chunky as a kid, a little bit overweight, 15, 20 pounds overweight as an adolescent, as a teenager. And when I was 17, 18, I got exposed to macrobiotics by someone I was traveling across the country with.
So could you explain, sorry, Stephen, so maybe some people don't know what it is and what's the concept of macrobiotics. So what is that?
Well, macrobiotics, and again, I'm not an adherent this day and age, but basically you're trying to balance yin and yang energies. And it's not just about food, it's about life in general. But I was basically applying it to food at the time. And rice is considered a good balance, of yin and yang energy. But I eat based on those that premise. And so I started following a macrobiotic way of eating, and I lost some weight. And I went from 185 pounds at the time down to 160. And people started complimenting me. It's the first time I got compliments about how I looked. And so that really got me intrigued more about diet and losing weight. And I started reading more. And I eventually took it to the nth degree, and eventually it led me to Arnold Ehret. And I was doing lots of fasting. And I just wanted to learn about health and healing. I was about 19 at the time when I started getting very seriously involved with it. Paul Bragg, people, around the 19th century, 1900s. Those are the people that I was really interested in reading about. That's when I first got exposed to the nervous system, how important that is. That was before I even knew anything about chiropractic. So that got me involved in fasting and I do day fast at least once a week. I do 5-day fast at least once a month. And I've done water fast up to 30 days. So and eventually it led me to become a fruitarian for long stretches of time, like 3 months at a time, just fruit only. So I just went down that rabbit hole in a pretty deep way.
Have you met any one of those health educators of that time personally?
No. I mean, some of them have already passed on. Arnold Garrett wasn't alive when I was into this, and Paul Brack, same. But no, I was kind of, when I took it to that level, I was doing a solo thing. It was just a self-exploration. I have a phrase I use a lot with patients, we're an experiment of one. And I think it's important that we all try and discover what is our truth and, what works for our body at a particular time. And what works at one time for someone may not work, at other times. So it's important.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So it looks like we lost Stephen again, but it usually takes for him 5 to 10 seconds to reconnect.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I have no control over that.
That's absolutely fine. As long as it's like 5-10 seconds, we are happy to wait for you and to digest what you have just said. It's fine.
It seems to come back. It seems to come back pretty quick. So, but it happens every 5 to 10 minutes or so.
No problem. Yeah. So you said that not everything that is applicable for one period in person's life is applicable for another period. Yeah.
And I've learned that the hard way in my case. I mean, I took being a fruitarian and the mucusless heal at dying approach so far. I mean, I went from 195 pounds to 105 pounds in 7 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 7 months later, I was 215 pounds.
Really? How did it happen?
Again, I'm kind of all in kind of a person. I guess I have an addictive personality or a compulsive personality. So I'm in with something, I really go all in. And in my judgment, I lost so much weight so fast and was so committed to what I was doing that there's a rebound phenomena. There's an old saying that I heard many years ago: the bigger the back, the bigger the front. So, when I did something one way, there's going to be something else on the back end that's going to balance it out. And that's kind of what I did. So once I gained all that weight back, I eventually lost weight again. But I believe, and this is my understanding from my own body, it probably took me till my late 40s or early 50s till I got some sense of normalcy in how I approach food and diet, and how I judge myself. In my 20s, I became, and I wasn't like this when I was doing the fasting, but in my 20s, I became, bulimic. I would binge,
Really?
and force myself to throw up. And I mean, a lot of disordered patterns. And so, because I was so extreme doing the, certain things that I just compensated in a very unhealthy way.
So
it took me decades.
Yeah. So Stephen, would you connect so you were kind of anorexic bulimic, something like that? Yeah. At some point.
Say that again, please.
So you're saying that you were kind of anorexic / bulimic. Yeah.
I was definitely anorexic.
Now, would you connect it to that, to your adherence to Arnold Garrett and really going to the extreme with that particular style of eating?
Yeah, I definitely connected to that. I took it to such an extreme, and I was really, at the time, I thought I was healthy. I thought I was doing something good for I was purifying my body. I was just cleansing my system physically, mentally, emotionally. Yeah. And I thought at the time I was actually healthy, but when I look back, I could see I really wasn't. I was deluding myself, and I was kind of stoned on being starved all the time. And just, I remember at the time I'd ride my 10-speed a lot. My bicycle, I was riding for miles and miles, so I'd exercise a lot. But I lost so much muscle tissue so fast that when I tried to sprint, from a standing position, I fall over. It was like my fast twitch fibers couldn't contract appropriately. And I could I could walk for miles and miles to ride a bike, but I didn't have any explosive energy at the time.
Yeah.
And, or at least physical control over that. And so, you know, at the time, I didn't think too much about it because I wanted to purify my system, and I was willing to commit to do that and do whatever it took.
Yeah.
So, but in hindsight, I don't think it was healthy for my body. There was unintended consequences that occurred because of that commitment.
And do you think that, what do you think now from your experience of so many years experimenting about this concept of cleansing, of using light substances such as fruit juicing, or just water for cleansing? Would you recommend right now, from your perspective, would you recommend it, or you think it's unnecessary?
Well, it's funny. I was just talking to a friend earlier this morning about that. And the idea that having to do a cleanse kind of indicates that you're doing something that's kind of system in the first place. Like if you're doing clean living and clean eating in the first place, you wouldn't have to cleanse so much. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it this day and age. Now, I do quote fasting. I don't call it fasting. I call what I do intermittent feasting. I feast.
Yeah.
And I won't eat for 18 to, you know, up to 24 hours at times, you know, but every day I have 18, I only eat 2 meals a day. And my first meal, my last meal of the day to my first meal the next day, usually is about 18 hours later. But I do that every day. So I feel that's like a cleansing. It's like, and it's sustainable. I'm satiated. I'm not white knuckling to do it, you know, which back in the day when I was younger, I'd white knuckle to fast, you know. I mean, after 24 hours, usually it's easier. I remember when I did my 30-day water fast, you know, the first week was first 5 days were challenging, a little easier. And after the second week, it was easy. I mean, I had energy and I could do stuff. But I think there's unintended consequences and there are costs to my body. And I think long fasts like that should be approached just like doing surgery, like natural surgery. I think it's in the way you break the fast is vital. I think anyone doing a 24-hour fast, or even maybe a little longer, that's fine. And you're not going to really hurt the body. It's probably good for the body to, you know, feel that. Mentally, emotionally, physically, it's okay to do. But if you're white knuckling all the time with it, I question the value of it.
Okay. But then someone who is a proponent of prolonged fasting would say, yeah, you know, Stephen, but now we have so many pollutants in the atmosphere, plastics, radiation, other things. So do you really think that eating twice a day and doing something like 20 hours, 18 hours in between the meals would cleanse your body a sufficient way? Like, what's your idea about that right now?
It depends what your goal is and why you're doing it, what you want to accomplish. I think for overall health and for vibrant health, I think that's, you don't have to do anything more than that. You know, for physical health, for the physical body, for the physical well-being, to function in the world with resilience, with strength, with focus, you don't have to do more than that, in my opinion. Now, people are fasting for other reasons, you know, for, you know, emotional connection, for a spiritual flow, for, you know, to connect with, you know, whatever is important to them. So, but on a physical basis, for physical well-being, with all the pollutants in the world and all that, I don't think you need to do more than that, or more than what I'm doing. At least that's my direct experience. That's my experience.
Yes, definitely. Okay, Stephen, so now let's get back to your story. So you were this avid follower of Arnold Ehret. You became very, very thin, you said, and then you weren't able even to sprint in a normal way. But then you also mentioned that at some point you even had the idea of going to the Caribbean to eat fruits, to live in the forest. Yeah. So it was, I think, in the early 70s or something like that. When
it was 1970. 1970.
Wow.
And a friend of mine He traveled around the Caribbean at one point, and he told me about some of his travels, and he mentioned that in Trinidad they have a great jungle with great fruit, and that's when I was into Arnold Ehret and mucusless, a diet healing system. So my goal was to eventually go to Trinidad and live in the jungle. And this
Okay.
was the summer of 1970.
Mhm.
So I went to Puerto Rico initially, and I saved up some money, and I planned on going down the islands, eventually get to Trinidad. Uh, I had some weird experiences in Puerto Rico, and I left. I had to leave Puerto Rico, and I went to St. Thomas, and I got a jobs in some boats. Eventually, wanting to go to Trinidad. I'd only made it as far as to Barbados.
Mhm.
I never made it to Trinidad, but I
Mhm.
worked on boats. And eventually, when I went back to St. Thomas, that's when I started going the other direction again. And when I
Mhm.
gained all that weight back. So
Ah.
my desire to go to Trinidad kind of left me, and I started going the other direction again. I gained a lot of weight very fast. In fact, I gained so much weight so fast, my ankles swelled up really big, and I
Wow.
went to the hospital in St. Thomas, and
Mhm.
they wanted to give me some shots and do stuff, and I just walked out. I didn't want all that,
Mhm.
and eventually I knew it was because I was abusing my body, eating pecan pie, eating pizza
Right.
and stuff that I hadn't had for ages.
Mhm.
Um,
So
so
Stephen, so by that time, did you abandon veganism, or you were still kind of vegan or vegetarian?
I was still, I don't know if I was 100% vegan at that point. I may have been more vegetarian because I was eating cheese,
Mhm.
pizza and things like that.
Mhm.
But over the next decade or two, I got back into veganism,
Mhm.
and where I didn't eat any, where I was vegan
Yeah.
for long stretches of time. And then I'd be a vegetarian again. For about the next 30, 35 years, I was basically vegan slash vegetarian, mostly
Mhm.
vegan, mostly vegan. And when I was vegetarian, I think I wouldn't eat any eggs or anything like that, but I would eat feta cheese. I eat a lot of
Mm,
feta
okay.
cheese. In hindsight, what I realized is that for so many years, I never used any salt, and I was eating very low fat.
Mhm.
And I think my attraction to eating feta cheese was satiating some of that lack of nutrients in
Yeah.
my body.
Yeah,
And
because
so
it
yeah,
because it
go
does
ahead.
it does contain some salt and some fat,
Yeah,
right? Mm-hmm.
exactly. And I think my body really needed that because I wasn't getting it anywhere else. I mean, I was eating a lot of rice. I was eating pasta. I was
Mm-hmm.
eating, lots of vegetables and fruit.
Yeah.
I love vegetables. I love the crunchiness of vegetables and fruit at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Um,
Okay.
so
Okay, Stephen, and tell me please. So after your Caribbean experience, when you gained all that weight back, have you ever got back to the Arnold Ehret style of cleansing and purifying, or you just stabilized as vegan, as like regular vegan or vegetarian?
no, I get back into fasting periodically.
Mm-hmm.
When I've done so long fast, I've done month long fast and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
even after that, after I gained all that weight and then I lost some again, that being my early 20s, I'd go in and out of quote cleansing myself to
Yeah.
try to purify my system, and then
Mm-hmm.
I get off the rails again.
Mm.
Because for me, I'm not saying this is for everyone, but for me, the way I was doing it wasn't sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's one thing about whether it's nutrition, whether it's exercise, relationships, whatever, if you don't do behaviors that are sustainable, it's going to come back to bite you in some way. There's going to be,
Mm.
so I've learned over the years to do what's sustainable for me. Again, whether it's with my fitness, back in the day, in my 20s and 30s and 40s, even, I was addicted to running. I'd run a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I'd run a few marathons. But even when I wasn't running marathons, I was still training very hard. I was really hard on my body, really pushing it really hard. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually that catches up to people, whether they get burnt out mentally or they
Mm-hmm.
get injured physically. So my goal as a 72-year-old, I want to do things that are sustainable for me,
Mm-hmm.
that I I'd rather do a little often than a lot every now and then. So
I see.
a little done consistently over a long haul, the body will get stronger, more resilient, more adaptable, more skillful at that movement. I'm talking about fitness now, or food, I guess. And
Yeah.
rather than just beating myself up and trying to be the perfect specimen, or
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
not everyone could train like an Olympic athlete, and most of
Yeah.
the Olympic athletes aren't all that healthy. They could do amazing things, but it doesn't mean they're healthy.
Right, Stephen. But now I want to go a little bit deeper into this question of sustainability and just learn from your experience, because if a person is overwhelmed and lives by a certain idea, it becomes quite difficult to judge what is sustainable and what is not. For example, a person thinks that a person who is on this trip of constant cleanse, like cleansing, it's quite difficult to because this idea he overwhelms him. So how would you judge whether the practice is sustainable or not? What are the criteria?
Well, that may be different for different people at different points in their life. I mean, Dr. Phil says, how's it working for you? How is it helping you? How is it enhancing your life on all levels? Physically, do you have the energy to do what you want to do? Mentally, are you focused? Can you think clearer? Is it really helping with your clarity? For me, at this point in my life, the way we were talking a few days ago, and you're asking me some questions about spirit. What's my spiritual practice?
Right.
And I forget what I told you, but as I started thinking about it, to me, my spiritual practice is coming from my heart.
Wow.
Can I communicate in a heartfelt way? And I have things I do every day to kind of help ground me and connect me to spirit. But basically, my spiritual practice is, my coming from my heart. The way I eat, does it help me do that? The way I move, does it help me do that? The way I think, does it help me do that? So I say, if someone is doing things that are allowing them to live their life in a way that's important to them, and they can do it on a regular basis, and it really is happening, then that's sustainable. Then they can say, well, that's sustainable. I'm creating inside of me, and how I connect with people or within myself, what I want, then it's sustainable. Now, for me, a lot of things that I thought were good for me, I have certain unconscious behaviors that would come out. Like, I remember there are times in my practice where I just want to bust open a door, like punch that door. Now, when I look back and I look at where I am now, that's not coming from my heart, obviously. There's something that I wasn't dealing with, whether emotionally or nutritionally or whatever, however you want to define it, that wasn't sustainable for me to come from my heart. So I think, so again, that's what's important to me. So everyone has to decide, well, what's their meaning for what they do, why they do it. And if they're doing it consistently, without any inhibition to it, and they don't have to think about it, it's not like white knuckling to do it, then they're probably living sustainably.
Yeah. Wow.
Their actions.
Yeah. Wow. That's a very, very good criterion. Yeah. Because if a person is doing something and then they never feel satiated, they always think about food and stuff like that. So probably it wouldn't be sustainable.
I can really relate to that. When I was a vegan vegetarian, I was hungry all the time. And I eat till my stomach feels full, and then I'd be satisfied temporarily. But a couple hours later, I still have this gnawing thing that I'm not satisfied. There's always this unsatisfying feeling in my body. Unless if I was pushing myself hard, if I was fasting hard, if I was running hard, if I was, then I think I was just exhausting. I was probably distracting myself from the emotional dissatisfaction of what I was feeling. This day and age, I feel very satiated, very connected, very much at peace. I have focus like I'd never had before. I don't white knuckle through anything. You know, part of it may be, you know, my behaviors, my diet and how I exercise, you know, maybe partly through my age at this point in my life. I look
Mm-hmm.
at things very differently. I'm able to let go of things now at 72 that at 32 or 42 or 52, I still had this inner drive to change, or, you know, I realize what I don't have control over. And so I have a different mindset at my age right now. But
Yeah.
at 20 to 30 shouldn't have a mindset like I have. You know, I think it's useful to really go for it and really max out what you think you want to do, because that's how you test your limits. I
Yeah.
already know, I know what my limits are. And so I don't have to test them all the time. And it doesn't mean I don't push myself at times. I hike in the mountains and I push my body pretty hard at times,
Mm-hmm.
but I pick and choose very differently than when I was in my 20s to 30s. It's very different.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing. So guys who are listening, I just want to let you know that about 5 minutes from now, we are going to open our mics and you will be able to ask your questions. But before that, Stephen, I just so we were at that point in your life where you still practiced fasting, cleansing every now and then. Basically, you were vegetarian/vegan. So, and then what happened next? Because as I understand, we are talking now about your late 20s, maybe early 30s, right? Or it was later
Well,
on?
I'd say my mid 20s, I was still very conscious of wanting to eat clean. I
Mm-hmm.
was, I guess, a whole food, plant-based focused. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, so I was trying to eat real food. When I was about 28 or 9, that's when I learned about chiropractic.
Mm.
And when I heard a chiropractor speak, he gave a health talk. And after my wife, who's my wife now, we were engaged at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She looked at me when we heard them speak. She said, "That's you." I mean, the way everything he was saying was, I was already embracing in my own life, you
Wow.
know, and so that's when I decided to become a chiropractor. I went to Life Chiropractic College in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I opened up my practice, you know, a number of years
Mm.
later in 1984, opened up my
Yeah.
practice.
Wow, that is so interesting. And then what happened next on your food journey? What were the next stages after that?
Well, the food journey, I was, again, you know, very much vegan and vegetarian for up until my late 50s, where I don't know, it was about 59 or so, 58. I think I had a piece of fish,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really weird. I remember eating it, and the texture, it felt like I was chewing on rubber. You know,
Mm. And
it was
what made you eat fish at that point?
at that point, you know, I'm not even sure what made me do it. I think I'm not even sure. I was just with some friends. We were at a restaurant. They were ordering, and all of a sudden, you know, what happened a few years later, though, when I turned 59, I got overweight again, and I got out of shape, and I wanted to get fit by the time I was 60.
Mm-hmm.
So I started exercising more. I did um, what do you call the uh, he was very popular. He had these video cassettes or DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, T90X. I got into that first and really worked hard, and then got this what's called Insanity series, where you do a
Okay.
lot of high intensity exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really working out hard,
Wow.
and I could just tell my body needed something different. It needed something different that I wasn't giving it.
Mm.
And so that's when I had my first piece of meat in, like, I don't know, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was some turkey initially.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I guess when I was vegan, a lot of times I felt bloated. My stools weren't good. You know, they were loose, and I just felt this didn't, though I thought I was healthy. I thought I just had to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I also had a skin condition on my hand where my hand would get very dry and peel, and I get these kind of cuts on my fingers, and it was really, and it happened for years, and it would get worse every summer.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started I had turkey initially, then I started eating ruminant meat. I started eating ground beef.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started eating the ruminant meat, my skin condition healed 100%. It was unbelievable. In hindsight, I could see my body was deficient in saturated fat. That's what that my body needed that to help heal my skin. And so that kind of woke me up. And about 1961, when I was 61, 2011, somewhere around there, I got exposed to Marxism and Paleo. So I started doing the Paleo thing. So I started incorporating, I wasn't eating grains. I wasn't eating, a lot of other foods, but I was still eating a lot of
now,
fruit.
Stephen, I'm sorry. So every time we introduce certain terms, there might be people in the group who are not familiar. So what is Paleo exactly?
Well, Paleo, people define it different ways, but it's basically trying to eat like our ancestors ate before agricultural age. Like what was the natural food consumption that a human would eat at that time for tens of thousands of years before agriculture came into being, before fruits and vegetables are so plentiful. And so it's basically eating quote a ancestral type diet. And so I was incorporating more meat at the time. I was still eating lots of vegetables. I would have a big ass salad, eating lots of fruits and vegetables. And then I did that for a number of years until about 2017, when Mark Sisson, again, I was a big follower of him, that he started talked about keto. He wrote a book called The Keto Reset Diet. And keto is basically minimizing your carbohydrate intake, your net carbs and your, so that under a certain amount per day. So I started experimenting with that. And I was still eating meat at the time, but I limited my carbs to my total carbs, no more than 50, my net carbs under 20 or 30 a day. So I did that for about 2 or 3 years.
So how did you feel? How did you feel on those diets?
Well, I feel good on a lot of things, but looking back, I was still feeling bloated. My bowel movements were still loose. They weren't what I call healthy.
Even on keto.
Now,
even on keto.
Even on keto. Yeah, I was eating lots of cauliflower, lots of kale, lots of spinach, carrots. I loved those foods. I loved the crunch. I loved the taste. So I'd have a big salad every day, and sometimes twice a day. But what happened in 2020, early 20, I noticed that after my second meal of the day, and I was also doing kind of like 2 meals a day, but I was white knuckling it. Like when I go too long without me, eating, I got to do at least 16 hours, and I do it, but it was an effort.
Yeah.
And when I'd eat my second meal, my evening meal, I always had to have a dessert of some kind. I like almond butter mixed with, with a banana or something. And it was like an habitual thing. Like I just had to do it. I couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
So when COVID hit, that was, February or March of 2020. And I was starting to learn about carnivore from different sources. And so that's interesting. I started reading about it. I said, well, I'm going to do it a month just to kind of reset my system, kind of like a cleanse. It was a cleanse. So I was going to do a month cleanse of just carnivore and no vegetables, no fruit.
I'm sorry. So initially, how did you get to know about the carnivore? Did you read about it, or did you watch it on the internet?
So about a year or two before, I had a patient who he always was kind of heavy, and then he'd lose some weight. And I was asking him what's going on. And he said, well, I do the Atkins diet. I said, well, what are you doing? He said, well, I just eat steak and eggs and I lose weight. I thought that was nuts. You don't eat any vegetables? How can you be healthy without vegetables, without fruit? And he said, well, he does it and he loses, but he eats it again. And he, so he goes back and forth. So that was in my mind back here. And then I saw on YouTube or a podcast that maybe I heard Mark Sisson talking with Sean Baker and Paul Saladino. They were being interviewed, and they were talking about ancestral healing and carnivore and all that. That intrigued me a little bit. And then I got exposed to a PDF by Kevin Stock. He's a dentist who's very much into carnivore, leading carnivore doctor. And I read his PDF from A to Z, talking about it, about 30 days to carnivore. I read it A to Z and said, God, this makes sense. Let me try it out, see how my body experiences it. And I was just planning on doing it for 30 days. So I did it the first couple of days, it was fine. And then I remember I ate some pork and I had a really bad reaction. And I think I was turning green. I remember my wife telling me, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, well, I think I'm just having a reaction. My body's, my GI tract is, the gut biome is changing and I got to, but I realized that I didn't eat pork. I haven't eaten pork since. But I still stayed with the carnivore thing, all meat. And I did it for 30 days. After about the 3 weeks, I had this, some people call it zero carb Zen. I felt this peace and calmness come over my brain that I never experienced before. And I also felt satiation that I never experienced before, ever.
Wow.
And I just had the satisfying feeling in my body. So after the 30 days were up, I said, well, let me do it for 3 months. And so I did it for 3 more months. And I still feeling good, still going with the flow. There was a transition. It wasn't like all 100%. I don't think I transitioned fully. Took about 9 months to a year to fully transition. But I always felt like it was the right thing to do. And the thing that I loved the best about it was the satiation. I never had a desire to snack. I'd eat no more than 3 times a day, often twice a day. But the satiation was there. My energy, I had to back off my exercise a little bit because I didn't have the energy that I normally would have. That took about 3 or 4 months for me to transition to feel more energetic. But eventually that caught up. What happens is that when you change to a carnivore way of eating, you go from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. So it takes a little while for your body to burn ketones and fatty acids as fuel as compared to glucose.
Right.
So that's the transition. Some people go through it faster than others. Some people it takes a few weeks. Some people could take a whole year,
Yeah.
So I felt so good. I kept doing it. And eventually I added eggs. I do eat some eggs, not a lot, but I do eat eggs. I eat fish. Every now and then I'll eat some liver or something like that. Not often. And lately I've been doing it. It'll be 3 years at the end of March. I've been doing this. And lately I've been having some blueberries, mainly because I don't want to be dogmatic about I could only eat meat. I wanted to, so I kind of throw in something else every now and then, and because I just don't want to have the dogma that I can't do something. This is all by choice. I'm not doing it because this is the rule. I'm doing it because I love how I feel in my body, and I love how I feel in my head, my heart, in my mental clarity and peace. Those are core reasons why I continue to do it.
Yeah.
And I may not do it after a certain while. I don't know, but I'm just riding this wave until it doesn't feel right to me.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, guys. So so we are really, really happy to have Stephen here. Like I'm really enjoying every minute, every second of our conversation. How do you feel? Do you like it? Huh, Stephen? Do you like our
you're asking me
so far?
You're asking me. Yeah. I thought you were talking to your group here. I'm loving this. This is fun. It's fun to share transparently what I've done in my life, and I'm not here to say what people are supposed to do. I feel like I said earlier, we're an experiment of one. And you have to find what works for you at this point in your life. And I think it's good to keep an open mind and open heart to change and to integrate what's right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the magic of this group is that we really have no agenda. We are just here to learn. And that creates safe space, for vegans, for raw foodists, for carnivores, for keto people, just to converse, just to open up. We don't need to agree about everything, but we are here to work together, because we all want to pursue natural healing. So
that's the fundamental. That's my fundamental goal too. To work with the body in a natural way and to express my vitality in a way that spirit is moving through me. There's a phrase in chiropractic we use sometimes: above, down, inside out. Spirit comes in, and how can we express that out in the world?
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Okay, guys, so you are welcome to open your microphones and ask Dr. Stephen Stern questions. If you don't have any, then we have plenty on our chat, and I'll start asking. But first of all, let's give credit to the people who came, and you can just ask your questions. Just feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Hi, Arik.
Hi, Karen.
Hello. I posted a question in the chat, but I can ask it because it's more authentic that way, isn't it? So yeah, so I would just like to say that Stephen looks very good, and that you can actually feel the calm and the balance of his being. So it's fascinating, isn't it? Because you hear these things about carnivore and it being much more of a, I don't know, I imagine it being more anger and stress type diet. But anyway, that isn't anything to do with my question. So my question is that Dr. Morse recommends the need for a good chiropractor on the detox journey. How do you know if you can benefit from a chiropractor, and how can you discern a good one?
Well, I think just about everyone can benefit from chiropractic care, just about anyone. So that's one thing, whether it's detoxing or not. I say get referrals from friends that you know, that you resonate with. When you go to someone, whether a man or a woman, a chiropractor, you'll know in your heart if this is the right place for you. I mean, have your direct, trust your, I'm a great believer when I have a new patient, I want them what's best for them. If they don't feel my office is the right place for them, I bless them and say, great, let's help you find what's right for you. So that doesn't happen that often. People resonate with what I do, but who tend to be attracted to me. But I say, trust your intuitive sense when their hands are on you, how they talk to you, are they respectful? Do they really get who you are? Are they aligned with what you want? If they're not, that's okay, because they still may have something of value to offer you, but make sure it's something that you resonate with, that they know why they're there, and have them explain to you what their vision of health and healing is. And if you don't connect with that, then find someone you do connect with. So that's how you'll know. And then once you're under care, your direct experience will let you know eventually. One thing I wanted to say that you brought up earlier about being a carnivore and how, the anger and all that. I had a good friend of mine that asked me, he said when I was a carnivore and I was into it for about 6 months to a year at that point, he says, what are your dreams like? Because he thought I'd have, really angry dreams and monsters. And actually, once I started carnivore, I started dreaming every night, and they're great dreams. Last night, I haven't played golf in 40 years. And I just picked it up again. I was dreaming about golf and hitting golf shots, but I'll dream about, my dreams are great. They're not violent. I'm very calm. I sleep soundly. When I wake up, you can ask my wife, I have energy. It's not like I'm dragging through the day. I don't drink coffee. I don't, I sleep well.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Are you fussy on where you get your meat? Like, are you wanting like free range and nicely looked after animals, or because that's probably an important part, I would think.
Well, I knew this question was going to come, and I have mixed thoughts about this, just to let you know. So when I first became carnivore, one of the things that was stressed upon me, at least what I thought was important, was that it's important to eat enough meat. And because if you don't, that's why a lot of carnivores fail when they embrace this type of eating, because they don't eat enough, and then they have trouble and they don't know why, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't want to limit myself. And I knew if I was buying grass-fed and all, trying to get high-end food like that I'd be too self-conscious about limiting my food. And I didn't want to do that. So I'm eating store-bought stuff. I look for sales. I'm not going to spend $20 a pound on, on a ribeye when I can get it for, $8 a pound.
No, I get that.
Or ground beef, which is a lot less. And so I mixed emotions about it, not so much for my physical, for benefit for health wise, there's not that much difference between grass finished and grain finished. All of it's grass fed, but it's just how it's finished, basically. The nutritional profile isn't so different that it's not going to, I feel I'm going to get all the health benefits I need from eating grain finished beef. However, I do think about, regenerative farming and so want to support local farmers that way. That's a different story about how it impacts the environment or local community and things like that, and having food shipped to me. So I mixed emotions about that, and I'm kind of leaning more, like I'm starting to get more grass-fed ground beef than I used to, but I haven't made the full transition yet. I own that I'm selfish in that way. I'm doing this mainly for my health and well-being, and so I'm not looking at the bigger picture like that as much as other people do. But I'm going more and more in that direction.
Cool. Okay, so just going back to the chiropractor theory. So I had, again, interesting because, again, I did have an experience about just over a year ago where I visited, and again, I did loads of research for exactly the same reasons that you said. Be very discerning, pick someone who is, that you resonate with. And so I went to a traditional what I would say a traditional chiropractor, and he did an assessment on me. And then he talked to me about a year's worth of treatments, starting with 2 to 3 sessions a week. It was going to cost a fortune. But anyway, I would have happily gone ahead, but they were so fussy about me wearing a mask that I just thought, forget it. That no way. That there's a mutual respect here. You want me as a client, and I'm not happy to do that. I was happy, But anyway, so that ended that relationship, and then obviously I did some research and found another person, and they just happened to be a McTimony chiropractor. Whether or not it makes any difference, I don't know. But yeah, he did one session on me, one treatment, and then said I was good to go, didn't need anything else. So it was like I just left in this just completely like, well, how do I know what's a good chiropractor and whether so anyway, there you go.
I think that's great. You kind of have both ends of the spectrum there, and I think that's one of the things that attracted me to be a chiropractor, is that there wasn't one way to practice. And for me, there's my first few years I practiced in a way I practiced nowhere near that I do now, but it took me a while to kind of find my way. And so you're talking about the first chiropractor you went to, I think it's really important that you don't minimize the values that are important to you. So if there's certain key things, core things that go against the grain of what is right for you, find someone else. That it's really important that you have a resonant connection, that again, that your values are respected. He or she may not agree with all of them or want to, make the environment to suit everything you want, but there should be a certain amount of respect. But the thing about a full year's worth of care, some chiropractors approach it that way, like chiropractic orthodontics. It's like, okay, we got this program, we want to get you from here to there, this is what it's going to take. Other chiropractors don't think like that at all. Very often for most chiropractors, seeing a chiropractor a few times a week can be very useful to help change certain patterns in the nervous system. Because again, we're trying to change how the nervous system responds. If your nervous system responds a particular way, your body's going to express itself in a different way, in a more vibrant, healthy way. So that chiropractor, he or she, will use a technique that's trying to maximize how your nervous system is integrating things in your life. And I relate that to movement too. I have a lot of passion about exercise and fitness, but the nervous system is key. And if your nervous system can integrate things in a good way, your body will have more dynamic health, more vibrancy, more aliveness, more connection. So that, to me, that's the key. How can we create peace and ease in the nervous system? be it through chiropractic care or through fitness.
Mm-hmm. Karen, I muted you because we had an echo coming from your side. So now you have to unmute yourself. Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Okay, I've done it. I've turned my TV. I watch it on the big screen, so that's why you get the feedback, because I've got my cat phone going as well as my TV. But anyway, and I forget that when I start to talk. But no, so that's really, really answered that question and very valuable. So I'll let someone else have a chat now.
Okay, thank you, Karen. And Karen is coming to us from England, right? From the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very good. Very good. Okay, guys. So please, if you have any more questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask. Let's have fun. And if we don't have anyone, then I will just ask you a question from the chat. So, okay, so then another question related to the chiropractic from the chat. If possible, I would like to ask this question to Dr. Stern. What could be the cause of sudden numbness of a ring and pinky fingers on the left hand? The part of the palm of the left hand under those fingers is also somewhat numb, and the feeling goes all the way to the elbow. Also, the movement of lifting the arm behind the back from the shoulder feels awkward and restricted. There is no pain, but some feeling of a weaker control and partial numbness that doesn't go away for over 2 weeks now. That numbness, partial loss of control, happened on the 13th day of my water fast. It felt like someone suddenly cut some cords connections in the arm. What could it be?
Well, it could be a number of different things. I mean, as a chiropractor, one of the things that comes to my mind is the vertebrae in the lower part of the neck area. The nerves that come up from the lower neck go through the shoulder, down the arm, into the hand to help innervate it, and to move, to make a fist, to whatever we do. But it also gives us sensations. So if there's something interfering with the lower part of the neck area, like C5, C6, C7, T1, that area there, that can affect the numbness in the hands. So I've had patients where, they have symptoms like what you're talking about. I take care of their neck and the tingling and numbness will go away. So that's one thing that's a possibility. When it happened, from fasting, this is a 2-week fast, if I heard that correctly?
Yeah, she said it happened on the 13th day on her water fast, yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. So, a water fast of 2 weeks long I think is very, well, I'll say it, it's very extreme on the body. It's going to challenge the body in very various ways to different people. The way you sleep could have pinched something in the neck area that can affect those nerves. Why it's happening there, I'd be curious if you had other injuries in your hand or your elbow years ago, where the fasting, the water fast, and the internal healing that's going on, there's some kind of reemergence, a healing process going on, a healing crisis that's kind of healing an old pattern that's been in your body. That would come to my mind. The body holds on to energy, and is there something else going on there that's reflected as part of your past, whether it's emotional connection, energetic connection? So that's a possibility. But from a chiropractic viewpoint, that's what I'd be checking for. And if you were in my office, if you had tension in there particular, I'd say, gee, there's a good chance that chiropractic care can help with that. If it's not getting better, especially once you start consuming food again, I definitely see a chiropractor. If you start changing certain habits, I don't know what you're doing for movement, exercise-wise. If you're working, if you're under stress, if you're, emotional stress, if you're still working, or if you're able to take time off, I think doing a water fast like that is very hard on the body, because there's so many other demands. Everything should be going to the internal healing process. So if you're too active, if you're trying to exercise like you did in the past, maybe you need to back down, and that will change how your body's reacting, to create more ease in it. So those are the thoughts that are coming to my mind right now. I hope that addresses what you want.
Thank you so much for the answer. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions? Okay, then the next question from the chat. Someone is saying, okay, question for Stephen. I have been having acid reflux, and I don't know how you pronounce it, GERD. Is it GERD?
GERD.
GERD, exactly. So I've been having acid reflux and GERD, probably from a weak LES. Do you know this acronym, LES? I don't know what it means.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. It's also possible that I have a Helicobacter pylori, okay? Some kind of a bacteria. I have read that chiropractic might help with acid reflux and the GERD. Have you had any patients like this before? And I will just finish. Other symptoms that I have are brain fog, throat/chest inflammation, right side chest/rib pain. It all started after I took some Western medication, which destroyed my stomach, maybe. He uses some swear word here, but I won't say it. Now doing daily acupuncture at traditional Chinese medicine like TCM, and taking TCM meds, which seem to be helping. TCM doctor said that I'm very yang deficient, and now I'm only eating cooked food, which seem to be helping. So basically, that's so the question. We're getting back to question. Have you had any patients with similar symptoms for the chiropractic treatment?
Yes.
Okay. So
A lot about that.
Yes,
but,
Stephen, I'm sorry we couldn't hear you for a few seconds. So after you said yeah, we stopped hearing you.
Okay.
So could you repeat, please?
So yes, I have seen patients with describing those kind of symptoms that have had benefit with chiropractic care. The thing that comes to my mind though is, again, it sounds like medications set this off and change your gut biome somehow, and your digestive tract is functioning very differently. I look at something like that is, how can you, we talked about cleansing, what can you do as like an elimination diet, like really trim things down. You said cooked food is starting to help you. That's great. There may be certain cooked foods that aren't good for you though, that have what's called oxalates in them or other anti-nutrients. There's certain, vegetables have compounds in them to help protect themselves. So I eliminate as much as you can. There's what's called an autoimmune protocols. To me, the ultimate elimination diet is carnivore. But if you're not eating meat already, that may be too extreme. But I'd say really simplify what you're consuming, and only eat foods that really you assimilate well. And it may take a while to experiment with that, and then slowly add other foods one at a time to see how your body's reacting to that. But chiropractic care can help that. Different chiropractors have different approaches to helping with that. Sometimes work right on the solar plexus themselves, and there's certain maneuvers chiropractors can do. So I don't know what to tell you other than that. I think chiropractic is worth a chance, that it can be helpful, but also what you eat, I think, would have a major impact on what you're experiencing.
Thank you so much.
And if you're taking lots of other vitamins or a lot of other things, that could complicate things. I'm assuming you're not taking the Western medication at this point, but if you're taking lots of vitamins, they can affect how your body can digest and assimilate those nutrients too from the vitamins. So I say simplify as much as you can what you're consuming, what you're putting in your body, and work from there.
Very interesting. By the way, someone says here in the chat, that is a great conversation. That was a great conversation. Thank you. So people love it. Just want you to know. Okay.
Good, thank you. Appreciate
Okay,
that.
another thing from our chat, from our group. I would be interested to know if Stephen has found a difference to his experience of fasting since making this shift. They mean making a shift to the carnivore diet. If you
I'm not sure exactly what the question.
the question is, he said, the guy says, or the girl, I would be interested to know if Stephen has found a difference in his experience of fasting since
okay.
making this shift.
Well, I don't do long fasts anymore. I haven't done more than, I guess the longest I've gone without eating since carnivore has been about maybe 30 hours, you know, more than a day. But again, I don't call it fasting. Some people call that intermittent fasting when you don't eat between, you know, long time. I feast and I eat when I'm hungry, and but I can go 18 hours without eating. So my perception of it is it's a lot easier than when I was vegan or vegetarian to fast, because I'm not as obsessed about food. One of the great things about carnivore for me has been the satiation, but I call it food freedom, where I'm not thinking about food all the time. I'm not thinking about what do I want to cook that's interesting, that will taste great. Like I know what I want, and it's easy to cook. I take it out of my fridge in 10 minutes. I'm eating what I want to eat, you know, and so that food freedom, I think, correlates with the fasting, the mindset about fasting.
Right.
Now, I go through different periods over the last few years where sometimes I like the feeling of feeling some hunger in my body, but my energy's great, and I'm not obsessed about. I don't get hangry, I don't get irritated. My energy's good. And then there's other times where I eat before I'm actually all that hungry, like I stay ahead of my hunger. So I go through different rhythms. I try and eat very intuitively. I try and live my life that way, in intuitive fashion. So again, I'm getting off tangent from the original question about fasting. But fasting is just, again, I don't look at it as fasting as much as I just go without food for a long time, and my energy stays good, my mind is clear, and I'm happy. So
yeah. Okay, great answer. Another question. Someone says, one of the things I read about carnivore is that as it has little to no carbs, it suppresses only bad organisms in the body, all those that produce harmful byproducts, etc. Parasites, bad bacteria, fungus, etc. Logically, it makes sense. So there is no question here, but probably the question is, have you ever inquired into what does it really suppress bad bacteria when you eliminate carbs?
It suppresses bad bacteria when you eliminate carbs. I say there's probably some truth to that. I can't quote any studies or this or that, but I know for many people, vegetables have anti-nutrients in it, and so the body's going to respond to eating the vegetable to protect itself, and it causes an inflammatory response in the system. There are people, when they start eliminating the carbohydrates in particular, not just going 100% carnivore, but eliminate carbohydrates, they find a lot of joint pain starts subsiding, or their digestive tract, whether it's IBS or, you know, Crohn's disease, you know, things like that. When they start eliminating certain vegetables in particular, they find that the inflammatory response in the body ceases or calms down, and they feel much better. So logically, that makes sense to me.
Okay, interesting. Another question coming from someone who is probably a vegan. Questions for Dr. Stern. What are your thoughts about karma-less food? So food without karma, without creating consequences, karma-less food. As he addresses you because he's writing in the third person, as he was a follower of Dr. Arnold Ehret, who explained about fruits as the only harmless food. Doesn't the soft corner in your heart feel the life of organism being consumed. Okay, so that's the first part. So what are your thoughts about that?
I kind of anticipated this question, or I thought it might be asked in a various way.
Mm-hmm.
I really, you know, if you buy any food from the supermarket, you're karmically, I guess, in the flow of death and dying. You know, if you live in a jungle and you just pick up a fruit from it, that's why I wanted to go to Trinidad. I just pick up a fruit from a tree and I eat it. That's like the ultimate not doing harm. However, in quote, the real world, the world that I live in, that I choose to live in,
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, everyone who doesn't live in a jungle, again, goes to the supermarket or other store to buy food that's shipped to them or whatever, is in the death process
Mm-hmm.
of the cycle of food consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you're vegan or carnivore, animals are dying. Animals die, you know, to grow, you know, the monocrops that people eat.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's, you know, mice, you know, snakes, you know, more animals probably die that way than a person who eats a cow that maybe could survive a whole year and only one animal dies, you know, as compared to eating vegetables where thousands of animals may die. So karmically, I don't have a conflict within my own being about that, because I think dying is part of the cycle of living, and that's the nature of the world. And the nature of the world can be very hard and difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And animals that die in the wild don't die a pleasant death. I mean, and that's been happening for eons. So I don't, you know, maybe it's a blind spot in me, but I don't, it doesn't weigh on me, the karmic energy of that. And I'm not saying it shouldn't for anyone else, but for me, it just doesn't weigh on me. Just like people talk about reincarnation or heaven. And, you know, someone was asking me the other day in my office about that, about, you know, do I believe in reincarnation? Do I believe, you know, this and that? I said, it's irrelevant whether I believe it or not. You know, it's how I respond in the moment at hand with the people I'm with. If they know I love them and I know I'm being loved back, just about everything else is kind of fluff. I'm not saying it's meaningless, but it's like, that's what's important, to love and be loved. And so other than that, whatever conceptual frameworks I want to give to reincarnation, karma, I mean, it's all stuff I'm making up in my head, and I could choose to believe in it or not, or, you know, it's irrelevant. How I act with someone one-to-one is the key for me.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at with that.
Very interesting. Yeah. And then the same person asks, will you be a carnivore if you need to kill the animal regularly by yourself? Interesting question.
Yeah, I thought of that, and I think I would. I mean, I can only say I think, because I haven't done it, but in my mind, if I was in a situation where I did that, I think I would do that to experience what it was like. And maybe if I did it, maybe I find it abhorrent and I wouldn't want to eat it anymore. I don't know. But I wouldn't deny the experience if I'm not going my way to experience it. But if I was in that situation, I think I'd welcome it and just, okay, let's see what's up here with this, you know, see if, so, I mean, that's how I think about it right now.
Yeah.
But I haven't been in that situation. So
yeah. So thank you for your honest sharing. Thank you very much. And then the same person is asking another question. What are your thoughts about the vibrations of food, which has death? As they say, that just when the animal is killed, it undergoes emotions of pain, intense fear, and severe stress, which as a result produces many toxic hormones in their body, and that is consumed. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, from my understanding and my reading, and listening to people that I think are much more knowledgeable than me, that I respect, that the food that is bought at now this is just on a physical level I'm talking about right now. Okay, and I'll address it on another level in a second.
Okay.
But on a physical well-being, for your health and vitality on a physical level, I don't think there's that much difference of how the animal died. Just in a physical health. Now, vibrationally, energetically, I do believe there could be an impact. To what degree? I don't know. I don't know. But I think, to me, it's all about energy and vibration. Chiropractic was founded on tone. So to me, it's all about vibration and energy, and what we see on this physical level, what I call the world of phenomenality, is really vibrating energy.
Yeah.
And we perceive it as a hand or this person or food or whatever, but it's just vibrating energy. So when it comes right down to it, it's all energy. It's all made of the same substance. So on that level, I don't know how much of a difference it makes. And unless if I want to give it certain values on a human level, how it affects my human being. But vibration is just vibration. And I look at it, and I do believe, and I've had these experiences where, I know I'm not my body. I am not my body. I know that. There's an energy that emanates, that allows me to be this Stephen in the world of phenomenality, that I am not my body. So on a vibrate, and I believe we're all connected. It's all one. So if it's all one, there's no separation. There's no this or that. If it's all one. So when we start talking about karma or vibration or, toxicity, all of a sudden we're dividing things about, polarity, something's hot, something is going to be cold, high, low, so toxic, non-toxic. But on a level that I connect with who my essence is, oneness, there's no separation there. There's no toxicity. Because the essence to me is something to do about love and union, something about that, whatever words I use is kind of minimizes what it is. To me is something about that.
Yeah.
So whether it's toxic, whether it's karmic, whether this and that, that's just mind constructs that are trying to satisfy how I or someone else wants to live in the world.
Yeah.
And how much weight you put on that will have an impact of how that impacts you.
Absolutely. And I have it might be real, like, I don't want to say problem, but that might be the heuristic mindset that at some point might be harmful. It may lead to different disorders. What do you think? Right.
It can. I mean, that's why some people can be vegan and be physically vibrant and healthy, because they resonate with it in a particular way. Other people will be carnivore. Other people will eat other ways or do other things in their lives. Our mindset and our heart set is really important. And it's up to each of us to find, what do we really resonate with our own being? And what's the truth coming from this being? Rather than, well, I see this person, they're doing something cool. I want to be like them because I know I really respect them. So you're just imitating what they do. Rather than finding your own expression. I was like that in chiropractic for many years. There was a gentleman that I really respected, and I learned a lot from him, and I wanted to practice like him, and he had a tremendous gift. And eventually I realized that, gee, I can't do what he does. I'd rather be fully myself, expressing my own truth, my own way of living, than be a poor imitation of him.
Absolutely.
And so it's important that we find what we resonate with and what calls to our heart, and what, because I think that will have more impact if you're true to your own nature, will have more impact on your health and well-being, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, than trying to do what you think is right because you read it somewhere or some so-called expert says it's true.
So true. That's so true. I agree. I agree. Lots of wisdom in your words. Thank you so much. Now, Ravital is coming
Hi,
to
good
us
evening.
from Israel. Welcome. Shalom, shalom.
Bye.
Hi. I don't know if it's relevant, but I've got this problem, osteoporosis. I don't know if you have any suggestions, tips, professionally from experience.
Well, I know most people, I don't know how you eat, and I'm not here to ask and kind of discern all that, but most people, in my opinion, especially older people, you seem young, you're a lot younger than me, but especially older people don't get enough quality protein to build strong bodies, the bones and muscles and tissue, tendons, and osteoporosis, it's your bone health is impacted. So if you're not getting good quality protein to nourish your bones, plus some weight bearing activities, it may just be walking or doing some push-ups or just body weight squats. It doesn't have to be intense stuff, but where you actually using your body, and that's not sitting in front of a computer all day. You're actually using your body in an active way, getting enough protein, and being active is a way to help your bones be stronger.
I exercise a little bit, and I'm trying to be raw vegan. So I don't know if
in my opinion, being raw vegan is going to be very hard for you to get the protein your bones need. It's going to be actually, I'll say it outright, it's going to be impossible in my judgment. Doesn't mean you can't be healthy, but there's consequences or unintended consequences you'll have by being raw vegan that if you're willing to accept on some level, because of other values you have around being raw vegan, that's up to you to decide. But your bones are going to suffer because of it.
I'm just trying to find the right diet and the best in terms of health. So what would you say?
You talking about physical health?
Yeah.
Yeah. In my mind, the right food to eat for physical health is ruminant meat, meaning meat from a cow, from a lamb, from a deer, ruminant meat, not turkey, not chicken, but ruminant meat. And, if you're open to trying that and just have a little bit, you may feel, if it's not contrary to other values you have, you may feel yourself physically very different. Or maybe instead of having ruminant meat first, maybe try some fish, eat some salmon or something, or just an egg. But just being a raw vegan, in my opinion, is going to be very hard for you to maximize your physical health.
What about avocado and tahini and things like
that? Yeah, all that's great, but it's not going to give you the amino acids that your physical body can utilize to build a strong bone. Again, if you want your physical health to change, you need more nutrients than what you're getting, in my opinion.
Okay, because I hear contradicting those on the raw vegan say that you can get mineral acids.
I've been there. I've been raw vegan. I know. And I was very committed to it. And I'm just letting you know from my experience in my own body, and I'm letting you know what I've read from other people and what I've heard other people say that been raw vegan. They started eating some meat, and all of a sudden, wow, I could really feel my body again. They feel the strength coming back in their body. So, take it for what it's worth. But
no, I feel great. But the thing is, the results are not so good. So I was wondering, and if it's only going to get worse because you're into menopause, and it's not going to get better. So,
well, when you say you feel great, that's wonderful. That there's emotional connection. You feel great that way inside your head. But you said the results aren't great. So the results are part of, take that as part of your feel the results. And are you willing to accept that? If not, then you may want to make some changes. And it doesn't have to be all at once, make small changes at first, see how you go with it. And if you don't resonate with it, you don't resonate with it. If you do, you do, and you move from there. But I'd say if you're not getting the results you want, then you want to make some kind of change to move in the direction you want.
I used to eat fish, but you're saying it's not enough. You have to have meat.
A lot depends on a person's activity, their inherent nature, maybe your genetics. There's a lot of nuance there. For some people, fish is enough. I think for most people, they benefit from eating ruminant meat. Most people will benefit from that, unless if they have some people get a tick bite. I think it's called alpha gal, and there's actually an allergic reaction to meat, a physical reaction. They can't eat it. That's very rare, very rare. But some people have a mental block about eating meat because of all the propaganda and all the advertising that we've seen over the years. It's got meat causes this, meat causes that, which I think is a bunch of BS from what I've read. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions about the harmful effects of meat. I think there's tremendous benefit from eating meat for most people. And so that's my bias at this point from experiencing what I've experienced from being raw vegan, fruitarian, but to going through the paleo, the keto, and where I'm at now. That's been my journey. So, you'll keep exploring your journey and you'll find what works for you eventually, but keep an open mind and an open heart about what's really true for you. What's really, is this really benefiting me on all the levels I want? If not, start making some changes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask something.
Yes, Vanessa coming to us from Portugal. I don't remember.
I'm Portuguese living in Norway.
Okay.
The question is, you talked about when you started being carnivore, then the body started using fats. But I remember from previously that I learned that all the cells in our bodies are really using sugar with oxygen in the mitochondria to produce energy. So this was a little bit conflicting, the information you told me now. And I want to understand if it's the mitochondria that is now using fat directly, or will it be converting it to sugar before it can be able to use it?
So thanks for the question. That's really a great question. I'm not a biochemist, so I'm not going to get into all the what goes on in the mitochondria. I've studied all that stuff, but I don't know it well enough to speak to it on that level. In general, the body can get energy either from glucose sugar that turns into glucose in the body, and the body can convert that, for energy, or the body can run on fatty acids or ketones for energy. Those are the two sources of energy the body naturally goes back and forth from. Back in, we were talking about ancestral eating, and back in the day, tens of thousands of years ago, if a hunter can eat, it'd take that nutrition and have energy. But very often, if the hunt was not that great and they go for days without food, the body will convert ketones into fuel for the body and will run on the ketones and run on the person's own fatty stores. Yes. Kind of running on its own fat stores, and it doesn't need sugar to function, or the glucose to function. Mm-hmm. So I've made a conscious choice. The way I eat is I'm what's called fat adapted, where I run on fatty acids and ketones compared to having my body rely on sugar or carbohydrates for fuel. Mm. And so there's a process called gluconeogenesis, where the liver can convert protein or amino acids into sugar when it needs it. So the minute amount of sugar that my body needs, my body can convert that from the foods I'm eating. But I mainly run on ketones or fatty acids for my energy. I don't rely on the sugar or the glucose for my fuel, which happens in the mitochondria, the energies, where the energy is being created. I don't know if that answers your question. If not, please ask it a different way.
No, I think you explained it the way you can, because the biochemistry around it, maybe I need to check a little bit more, because I understand the part that body can use fats, burn it and get energy. But I just wanted to know if is it converting the fats to sugar beforehand so that mitochondria can use it?
Yeah.
Or is it just taking the fats directly and putting it?
Yeah, from my understanding, it's taking the fats directly, using it that way. That's my understanding.
Mm.
However, there is a process called gluconeogenesis where it can be converted differently.
Okay.
And that happens. That's from my understanding, it's demand oriented. Like it's only when the body needs it a certain way, but generally it's the fatty acids that can supply the energy, and it doesn't have to go through the same process as the sugar that you're talking about. That's my understanding. But
Okay, thank you. Another question is about people having a low body temperature. What can be the cause? Is it just about our nervous system, or something else might be happening? Because this is very diffuse. I went to a chiropractor and I was looking for some answers for this, and he did some manipulation, but nothing really happened.
well, my question would be, are there other symptoms going along with that? Low body temperature by itself, I mean, I guess there's different degrees, a spectrum of it, but low body temperature by itself, if there's no other things going on that's affecting a person, whether like lightheadedness or dizziness, weakness, fatigue, things like all those things are happening, then then the low body temperature may be part of the sequela of what's going on with the body that may need to be addressed. The nervous system could definitely be into play there, and chiropractic care may be beneficial, but there may be something organically going on that needs to be addressed too. Whether it's nutrition, whether it's stress in the body, over exercising. I mean, there's just so many things that can affect one's well-being. So, but if it's a consistent pattern and there's nothing else going on that's really negative around the body, I don't know if I'd be that concerned with it personally.
Well,
if that's the only thing.
Yeah, the tests are coming up there. Everything is great, but it's just that it limits my possibilities about what I can do outside, because I live in a cold country. And
well, when I was vegan, now that I'm carnivore, I'm much more comfortable in the cold weather than I was when I was just eating vegetables and fruit. Just to let you know. So I don't know what your diet's like, and the cold. The cold doesn't affect me like I used to hate winter, and I never liked being outside in the wintertime. And I live in a pretty cold climate. I live in Massachusetts right now. I've lived here for almost 40 years, or over 40 years. And the last few years, I really enjoy being outside. I like snowshoeing. I go hiking. When it's 10 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, 10 degrees below Fahrenheit, I still can be outside. I mean, I've dressed up really warm, I've dressed up well, but I used to hate being outside in the cold weather before I was carnivore. So your diet can definitely have an impact of that. And I think for me, eating the ruminant meat, the saturated fat and ruminant meat, it's not only just good for my brain, for my thinking, I think it helped. But I remember now, you just reminded me, before I was carnivore, I remember getting a blood test, and they had trouble getting the blood out of my vein. I was so dehydrated all the time.
Yeah,
and since I've been carnivore, I noticed my fingers feel puffier. I'm still a stable weight. I don't weigh anymore, and my body composition is fine. But I'm like puffier, and like it's easier for me to have blood tests now. In fact, I've been experimenting. I wanted to see what my glucose level was after eating and going without eating for 3 hours, and just to kind of track that. I've never done that before. It's so easy to get a blood now, just to get a little glucose test. And so, and that's all because I think I've been eating the saturated fat. I think that's made a difference for my body, which probably can affect body temperature. So for what it's worth, meat, maybe eat more meat and you'll see your body temperature change. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you anyway. Thank you for the insight.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions, guys? Okay, and I will read actually the last question in the chat. The guy or the girl says, could you please ask Dr. Stern the questions? The first question, does he believe that the high level of anti-nutrients in plant-based diets, oxalates, lectins, phytates, etc., have a negative effect on our health? I have seen a number of people go to carnivores, suggesting that oxalates were a massive problem for them, and once eliminated on carnivore, their health improved. So that's the first question. So what do you think about all these anti-nutrients in plant-based food?
Yeah, they definitely can have an impact on more people than those people realize. Oxalate dumping, there's a phrase called oxalate dumping. For some people, when they stop eating those foods, the body will dump these oxalates, and actually crystals will come out of the eyes, or people. I mean, just skin will just release the toxins and all that. Some people
I'm sorry, Dr. Stern, but some people just again might not be familiar with those terms. So if you know a little bit, could you explain what it means actually? Oxalates, lectins, phytates. How would you describe those? And what does it mean, anti-nutrients in general?
To me, anti-nutrients in general are just the plants have protective mechanisms that exist chemically to keep the plant alive. An animal can either run away or fight, a four-legged animal, right? Or fly. It could get away from the predator. Plants can't, they're just sitting there. So they produce certain chemicals to help protect it, keep it alive. So certain animals, if they eat it, they won't eat certain foods. Or if they do eat it and they pass the seed along. They take the seed and they'll poop it out somewhere else so the plant can live somewhere else. All right.
Right.
So there's these chemicals the plants produce to help protect it and keep it safe. When we eat it, our bodies can't assimilate that. So those chemicals react in our body in a negative form. Oxalates are a pretty extreme form that it's like a crystal, like the body will form these crystals inside it, and it can cause the kidney stones, things like that. So the body will want to release it. Some people who go 100% carnivore, it can release so fast that it's called oxalate dumping, and the symptoms are so intense that they'll actually eat some oxalate foods just to slow it down a little bit. So most people aren't, that's very extreme. If you're really metabolically damaged, then that may happen. But most people aren't quite that extreme. There may be some oxalate release or other toxins that get released. Some people, they may get headaches initially, or feel fatigued or other symptoms, whatever. For most people, that'll go away within a few weeks, if not a few months. For most people who start cleaning up their diet. Again, a lot depends on how metabolically damaged they were going into it. So plants can have properties in them that our human body will resist and trying to eliminate any way it can. And whether that's through diarrhea, through constipation, through skin, through our eyes, through our sweat, whatever, it will release it in some way.
Okay, so which plants are the richest in these kind of anti-nutrients?
Well, spinach and kale are high in oxalates. I say just about any plant has some, quote, anti-nutrient in it. Some people can handle plants better than other people, though. So it's not like everyone's going to have a reaction to the same plant. So you got to experiment. That's why it's useful for me to suggest to people do an elimination diet. To me, again, eating red meat is the ultimate elimination diet, just that one food. And then start adding the plant back, one at a time, see how your body reacts to it. I've done that. The other day, I haven't had avocado in a number of years. And I thought, well, I'm going to try an avocado. So I had just about an ounce or two. It took me 3 or 4 days to get through the whole avocado, but I had an ounce or two, once a day, just see how my body did with it. If I wanted to include it in my diet again, and my body did fine with it, and it tasted fine, but I have no desire to eat it right now. No, I tried it, but my body, if I wanted it, I know I could handle it, and it would be okay. And that's what I'm doing with blueberries now. I've been eating blueberries for the last couple of weeks. An ounce or 1 or 2 ounces a day, and
So
my
how do
body
you
seems to
feel?
do fine with it. Yeah, I feel fine with it, and my body can handle it. Now, some people may eat something like that and not handle it well. So again, we're an experiment of one. So, but in my opinion, all vegetables have some kind of anti-nutrient in it to some degree. However, some people can handle it better than other people. So now again, before I was carnivore, I was eating lots of kale, lots of spinach, lots of cauliflower, all those foods. But my stools were always loose, but I thought that was okay. I accepted that. In hindsight, I could look back and say, no, my body was not assimilating the food really well. For the food to flow through me like that every day for years, something was wrong, but I accepted it. So some of you people may be eating stuff and you feel fine and you feel good, but when you look back later on, you may say, gee, that could have changed. That may have been different. That's how I'm looking at it for myself. So what you accept now may not be acceptable a year from now.
Very interesting. Yeah, and actually this question of reintroduction is the next question the same guy asks, has Dr. Stern ever tried to reintroduce some healthy foods he eliminated prior to going carnivore? I have seen some people reintroduce fruit and raw dairy, saying the 0 to little carbs of carnivore diet damages long-term health. So basically they say that some people do bring in some little carbs because they say that it makes damage long-term.
Right.
They then feel much better with these other food groups as well as the meat. Yeah, like I think that Paul Saladino, right? He has introduced fruit back along with meat. Yeah. So what
lots
are your
and
thoughts
lots of
about that?
carbs. Yeah, he's introduced lots of carbs. He eats up to 300 carbs a day.
Yeah.
Now, which is a lot, So some I wouldn't call him, real carnivore. He's animal, and he says he's animal based. He's not carnivore at this point, but I mean, there's some people who've done just all meat only for decades, 10 years, 20 years, even more, and they're fine and they're happy with that. There's other people that add in food, carbohydrates to various degrees, like Paul Saladino, or a lot less, maybe. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I ate the avocado, or I'm eating blueberries now, because I think there is a benefit, and this is a judgment from my own body, to have the insulin be spiked every now and then. I think there's a benefit of that, and not having it just, not being spiked because you're not eating any carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So I think there's a benefit.
I'm sorry, could you please explain the meaning of insulin? Because some people might not know what it does exactly in the body.
Well, insulin is produced from the body to take the glucose and put it back in the cells for health. To allow the body to work better. And so insulin is needed when you have more sugar in your system. You produce more insulin to take that sugar out of the bloodstream and nourish your cells, nourish your body. Now, if someone produces too much insulin, and the insulin staying up at a high level, that's when people become diabetic, and they're insulin resistant, or maybe they're not producing enough insulin to take the sugar out into the cells, so they become diabetic because they're insulin resistant. And the insulin, the body's natural process, isn't doing what it's meant to do. So insulin it's important hormone to have at its right level to have the body function well. Again, I'm not a biochemist. I'm not a nutritionist in that way, so I'm not going to talk in the details about that, the way that some people may want me to speak to that.
Mhm.
So, but I judge that there's a benefit from being what I call metabolically flexible. So
Mhm.
if I eat carbs, my body can handle it. And if I eat just fat, my body can handle that good too.
Mhm.
I seem to be able to do that. Now, I'm not even overabundant of carbohydrates because I have no desire to do that now. But I think if I ever went in that direction, I'd find which carbs are better for my system than other carbs.
Mhm.
So it's not, I don't think there's a one system for all, how everyone's supposed to eat.
Mhm.
And some people say being a long-term ketosis is bad. I know Dr. Saladino talks about that. And other people say, no, it's fine. You could, people have done this for 10 years, 20 years. The lab results are great. Their energy is great. Their health is fine.
Mhm.
Again, we're an experiment of one. Find what works for you. I don't think there's an absolute, like everyone needs carbs or everyone needs to be carnivore. I think you got to find what works for you. And that's one thing about being my age, at 72, I've had an opportunity to experience a lot of different things that work or didn't work for me, or I
Mhm.
find can work better. And there's an old saying, the only way out is through. And so the only way to learn what's right is to go through it, not
Yeah.
around it, not to talk about it, not to do it because someone else says it's true, but you got to go through it yourself. And hopefully you find ways of going through it in ways that are honoring to your body, that don't do harsh actions on your body that you regret. I took some things to such an extreme that I had a rebound phenomena that made me do other things in extreme. It took me
Mhm.
many decades to find kind of a mellow ground that's right for me. So,
Okay.
keep exploring to see what's right for you. That's what I suggest.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell me, please, so today in your current diet, do you put emphasis on the fatty parts of meat or on the protein loaded parts of meat? Because I heard that if a person eats too much protein, it does get converted to sugar finally, and it may take you out of ketosis, right? So people who are into this ketogenic way of thinking, they often advise to choose, if a person eats meat, to choose fatter parts rather than
Right.
protein. So what do you think about that?
Well, first about ketosis, just that I don't care if I'm in ketosis or not. I'm not chasing ketones. That's not what this is about for me.
Okay.
So it's not about being in ketosis for me.
Mhm.
So the thing about fat, if you eat too lean of meat, let's say like people think chicken breasts are healthy, or white meat of turkey, or if you're eating lean meat like that, I don't think that would be healthy for the body. The body needs fat to be
Mhm.
healthy, fat from the meat, ruminant meat. So I tend to eat the fattier meats. If I don't have a fattier cut, sometimes I'll add some beef fat to it that I'll cook and cook with it, and I'll have that with it. So
Mhm.
to me, a certain amount of fat is important. Now, some people overdo it, and they think you have to have so much fat. Like if you're not 70-30 or 80-20, fat to protein ratio, that you're not doing it right. I don't believe that. I think I've tried to add more fat in my diet at different times, just experimenting, and I could tell it just wasn't right for my body.
Mm.
I'm usually about 65-35, 60-40,
Mhm.
65-35, something like that.
Mm.
60-40 is typical. Maybe a day I'll be 70-30 every now and then, but on average, I'm more
Yeah.
60-40. That seems to, I thrive on that. Satiation wise, taste wise, energy wise,
Mhm.
sleep wise, thinking
Mhm.
wise, so, and it will change again. And I like feeling intuitively, maybe I want more fat for a few days. Maybe
Mhm.
other days I want a little less. So.
Okay, so when you're saying 60-40, it means 60% fat and 40% protein, or vice versa?
Yeah. No, yeah, 60% fat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's your take on salt nowadays? Because you mentioned that you went a long
I mean,
period without salt.
just to back up about the meat,
Yeah.
I eat between 1.5 pounds and 2 pounds of meat a day.
Mm-hmm. Which means,
that
yeah,
gives me
so how much would it be in kilograms? Because there are some people from Europe here. I think it's 1
a
pound
pound
is
is
about,
16 ounces. A pound is 16 ounces.
yeah.
So
Actually,
so
we
2.2 ounces. Yeah. I don't know the conversion off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah. So, but if people are interested in it, they can convert it by themselves. So you're eating how much?
About a pound and a half to 2 pounds a day.
Okay.
Now, there was a time I was eating more than 2 pounds, more like 2.5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And at a time, sometimes I eat less than a pound and a half. But usually about a pound and 3/4 divided between 2 meals.
Yeah. I'm just checking in the dictionary. So 1 pound is about 0.45 kilos. So it's about half of a kilogram. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it means that you're eating nowadays about 1 kilogram of meat a day, something.
Yeah,
like
a little less. I think 1 kilogram, if someone just posted, is 2.2 pounds.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. So a little bit less.
Right. So I'm eating a little less than that. But there was a chance about a year into it, or a year and a half into it, I was eating more. Maybe I was exercising more. I was just hungrier. It just felt right to eat that much.
Okay.
But now I'm eating less than 2 pounds a day. I'm just finding different grooves that feel right for me. And it depends if I'm eating fish with it compared to just ruminant meat. Fish to me is more of a side dish. It's the ruminant meat is the key. That's the key for me. And the fattier, the better. The fattier, the better.
Got it.
So that's, to me, that's it's more satiating. And I think it does better things for my body. Now, some people, when they first do that, and they're eating more fat than their body can handle, they may have diarrhea.
Yeah.
So some people say, well, pull back on the fat. Some people, they start eating carnivore, they get constipated. So the recommendation for those people, well, start eating fattier foods. Start eating fattier meat, and that'll be useful. So again, there's so much nuance and, the metabolic health of a person.
Because I think eating fat stimulates the production of bile, in the body.
Yeah.
And then it makes you go to the bathroom, at some point. So I think it's
and just let you know, there's people who've had their gallbladders removed and do fine in carnivore. Just let people know. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And what's your take on salt right now? Because you mentioned that you went long periods without salt. Cool. Are you using salt nowadays, or?
Oh yeah. I used to, back in 1970 when I first started getting into this stuff. I thought salt was evil, and I didn't salt my food until I started eating feta cheese. When I started eating that a lot, about probably in my 50s, I started eating feta cheese.
Wow.
But I had no salt at all. I never added any salt, and I eat very little processed food. I was just salt free and low fat. That was my mantra back then.
Yeah.
So now this day and age, I do eat a lot of salt. It's called dry brining. I'll take my meat, my steaks, I'll salt both sides, not a lot, but enough,
Yeah.
And I'll put it on a rack in the fridge. And it's called dry brining, so it's exposed to the air.
Yeah.
And I'll have 2 racks, and I'll have enough for 5 days of meals. So I'll just rotate them.
Yeah.
And so it dries out, and the salt gets into the meat more deeply.
Okay.
And when I sear it, I cook on a cast iron mostly, and I just sear each side for about a minute, and so it's still pink inside but seared on the outside. And that's how I like to eat. That's how I like to eat my meat. It's pretty rare, pretty rare on the inside.
Okay. And why do you think that many people, let's say from raw vegan communities, will tell you that salt, it's a crystal form, it's an inorganic, our body doesn't need it, does not absorb it. What is healthy, in your opinion, in consuming salt?
If the salt isn't processed a lot, it's natural. It's not, there's processed salt, like table salt that people typically buy, like Morton's table salt. Yeah, I don't eat that. It's called real salt from Real Life Store. It's it's a very natural salt.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah, but I mean, there is this classic raw vegan argument that salt is a rock, and then they say, like, but you wouldn't eat rock, so why do you eat salt? So how would you,
I eat it for, I eat it mainly for the flavor. It makes the meat taste more flavorful to me.
Mhm.
And sometimes I use less than others. It's not bad for the body. In fact, I think it's been good for my body, personally. Sometimes some people, when they start doing carnivore, or low carbohydrate, they lose a lot of water weight and they lose a lot of electrolytes. So people replace it with an electrolyte supplement, like it's called LMNT, or there's another one called Relight that has potassium, sodium, and a couple of magnesium in it. So they'll actually replace salts they may be losing. The body's now. When we talk about ancestral health before, eating ways of eating, I don't mean to be gross to people, but when people before agriculture age, and for tens of thousands of years, when a human would eat an animal that it killed on the hunt, it also consumed the blood of that animal. And that blood has salt in it. And so we've actually evolved having salt from an external source in our system like that. So it's not like salt is bad for us. Now, you can have too much of a good thing, you can have too much water is not good either,
Yeah.
So you can have too much of a good thing. Too much exercise isn't good, so you can't have too much of anything.
Yeah.
However, I think going without it is not the way to optimize health. And again, I don't like the word optimize, because I'm not trying to optimize and have the perfect way to eat. I just want to feel good in my body, feel good in my heart, have a clear mind, and engage in life the way I want to engage. It's not about perfection. It's not about perfection for me.
Yeah.
It's about enhancing my life in ways that I can allow to live my life that makes sense to my head, heart, and gut. And if I'm living that way, then whether I have a little salt or not is irrelevant.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions? We are going to wrap up our conversation soon, but I still have a few questions, but maybe some people from the audience have any questions. Welcome to unmute yourself. Yeah, okay. And now
I see a question in the chat.
Okay, let's see.
Someone tried carnivore.
Yeah,
someone tried carnivore for 3 months.
Raj, but you can just unmute yourself and ask directly if you don't mind. If you have considerations, we'll read it from here. If you could just ask it directly, that would make live conversation.
Sure. I'm just in the middle of an open area, so
that's fine. We can hear you very well. No problem.
Oh, good. Because it's very dark where I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Stern, for your talk so far. Yeah, basically, as I've asked, I tried the carnivore diet last year. I'm still on a journey of trying to see what works for me, and I have been through things like raw veganism, vegan, paleo, keto, etc. When I started it was pretty easy in terms of having meat 2 or 3 times a day. I did go through the loose stools, part of the fat adaptation. But I think after about a month or so, maybe 1.5 months, I couldn't stomach any more meat, even though I varied the meat. I had some fish, some eggs, including raw eggs, etc. And one thing I assume that many carnivores can do it for a long time because they actually enjoy the taste of the meat. And I simply I didn't know how it can be done. Maybe it's just my body. I'm from Indian origin, born in the UK, but maybe carnivore isn't for me in terms of my body's telling me I want the flavors from other foods, like the fruit, the vegetables, etc. I primarily did the carnivore to see if oxalates or any other, plant-based anti-nutrients were causing my problems. So I'm just interested. Is there an ancestral thing to this, you think, where people from, the Northern Hemisphere are better suited from all kinds of aspects, not just taste, but you know, just in terms of genetics and all this kind of stuff. So I just like to know your kind of thoughts on that.
No, great question. I do think there's genetic tendencies that may attract someone to a certain way of eating than other ways of eating. So I think you're spot on about that. I think the idea that it gets monotonous, sometimes it's more of a mental thing, just that we're conditioned to some, you know, habitual, you know, family connections, what food means to us. I'm at the point in my life where I look at food as fuel. You know, it's fuel for my body. I'm not looking to be entertained. I'm not looking for an expression of love. You know, like my daughter and her husband, they cook together. It's a communal thing. That's the way they show love to each other and connection. I don't look at food as that way. I used to look at food like that. I don't look at it that way anymore for me. So for me, as long as it tastes good enough and I enjoy it, I mean, sometimes I like some meals more than others, but I always enjoy what I eat. I don't want to eat things that are abhorrent to me that that I just don't want. So I enjoy it, but my mindset is more about fuel and how I feel in my body from eating it. That's what's important to me. Now, again, people have other constructs about food, entertainment, family, connection, variety. That's important to a lot of people. There's some carnivore cookbooks out there that, you know, show more variety, to use spices. I only use salt. I don't use any other spices. And my wife and I were just talking about it yesterday. She said, "Can I remember when I used to love hot sauce? I used to love eating spicy stuff and hot peppers and, you know, just crazy stuff. And I don't do that anymore. I don't miss it because I look at what I consume in my body as fuel. And that's good enough for me. Now, it may not be good enough for other people to look at it that way. So if you need variety, and you're right, your body may not be for your body. So I encourage you to kind of keep exploring what's right for you. Maybe doing a elimination of meat only periodically may be good for you to kind of reset the system. That may be useful for you every now and then. I don't know, but that's something I suggest to you to consider. But don't force yourself to eat food you don't like. And what I found, some people, if you're hungry enough, usually meat, even if you don't like it, you'll enjoy eating it, you know, if you're hungry enough. But, you know, everyone's different. So I honor you and respect that, you know, you're experimenting and exploring and trying to benefit your well-being by, you know, changing the way you eat. So good for you.
Thank you. Can I just add one follow-up question, if that's
Yes.
okay? Basically, I think you mentioned in your talk that you eat very little organ meats. You have liver every once in a while. So, I mean, as far as I know, some of the carnivore proponents out there, they kind of emphasize organ meats. They say, you know, like the liver is packed with nutrition. I can't clearly remember, but if someone eats very little organ meat, are they not missing out on some nutrients that you know, you wouldn't typically get from muscle meat? And my second part of that is, just let's take a mineral, for example, like magnesium. Are we getting sufficient enough magnesium from a carnivore diet? That's just one example. There could be others, but typically, I mean, do you have the same view there about the organ meats? Because you know, from what you're saying is a little bit different to some other proponents.
Right. Yeah, no, thanks for the question. There's some chiropractors that think it's mandatory to eat nose to tail and not just eat muscle meats and eat not just liver, but, you know, spleen, kidney, brain, you know, to eat, you know, a variety of organ meats. And there's been different rhythms in the chiropractic community where organ meats are
I'm sorry, are you talking about chiropractic community or carnivore community? Because you said
carnivore. Carnivore community.
Because you said twice chiropractic, so I was thinking.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, you know, no, the carnivore community. So in the carnivore community, there's been different emphasis on organ meats from some carnivores compared to others. I base my perspective on long-term. I know there's long-term carnivores that have never had organ meat that seem to be doing fine with their health, and they've been doing it for decades. So do I think it's mandatory to eat organs? No. Do I think it can be useful? Yes. Do I think you can eat too much of it? Yes. If you eat too much liver, you can have vitamin A toxicity, which can cause other problems. Some people think that's the difficulty Dr. Saladino ran into. He was eating so much liver that caused him to, go more carbohydrates to kind of balance that out. That's why he was having trouble with carnivore and why he kind of switched a little bit. And I don't think he's wrong or bad for doing it. He's finding what works for him, which is great. But people can eat too much liver and get vitamin A toxicity. So some people are eating, ounces and ounces every day. To me, that's too much. From my perspective, I think it's healthy to eat a variety of meat products. So that's my primary food are muscle meats. However, I do eat fish. I do, my wife just cooked up some shrimp. I'll have that, along with my meat. I've had salmon. I'll have liver. I've had whether chicken liver, beef liver, or lamb liver. All of them taste a little different. Sometimes I want to have that, and then I won't have it for a month or 2 or 3 months. It just doesn't appeal to me. So again, I try and eat intuitively. So now that liver is mandatory, and it's not that it's bad, it's that you need to find out what's right for you. If you're eating a food and you find it very disgusting, but you're eating it because you think it's good for you, I'd say you're doing something bad for your body and your heart and mind. So don't eat something that your body has a repulsion to. If your body's attracted to it, say, gee, this feels right. Let me, try it out, see how your body does with it, head, heart, and your body. So it just takes experience and exploring a little bit. So kind of a long-winded answer, but I don't think liver is necessary. I don't think there's a lot of people get hung up about certain nutrients, whether it's, magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, this and that. I think our bodies are much more creative and adaptable than people give it credit for. And not everyone needs a set amount of X nutrient or mineral or vitamin. I just experienced, in my own body, different things like that. So I know my primary is concerned. She knows I'm carnivore. She's concerned about me getting enough vitamin C or this or that. I'm not. I'm not. I could just tell I don't have scurvy. I've been doing this long enough. I think I'd have scurvy by now, after 3 years of doing what I'm doing. But I eat, and I do eat eggs along with the meat and fish. But I haven't eaten chicken. I don't eat pork. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. I mean, just one comment there. I completely agree. We're each kind of different in terms of we take the nutrients in. Each one of us may be able to assimilate things differently, etc. It's quite complicated. I mean, but one theme I have seen is obviously when we first enter the journey, we kind of pick the kind of dietary regime that might help us the most. And there was a lot of people promoting veganism, even a lot of vegan MDs, and you've seen some of them shift. I mean, I don't know if you followed a person called Dr. Robert Kassar. He also was a raw vegan for quite a long while, had a YouTube channel and all that. And then he moved towards incorporating meat with some fruit, so just meat. And he said that the meat rebuilt his hormones and other things, because he really was in a bad shape after being on a vegan diet for a long time. So I think we just have to all be open-minded, support each other, and hopefully we all can work out our journey. But thank you for your answer and your talk. Thank you so much.
So, thank you for the question and your participation here. You said something that's really important. I just want to highlight. It's not what we take into our mouth that makes us healthy. It's what we assimilate. So you and I can take the exact same food in, and it has certain nutrients that are supposed to be good for us. But if your body assimilates it better than mine, then you're getting the nutrition from it. So And that's about just about anything in life. It's, what you can assimilate and use. That's why I go back to the nervous system is so important. The way the nervous system responds to food, to movement, to, whatever we do, it's how we take it in is the key. And if we're taking it in a good way, good things will happen. If our bodies aren't ready to assimilate it for whatever it is, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, then there's going to be this resistance, this kind of conflict that's going on inside the body. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Amazing,
Thank
amazing.
you.
Okay, Dr. Steven, actually, that's the time for us to wrap it up for today, but I have tons more questions and subjects I would like to discuss. I wanted to discuss exercise. I wanted to discuss healthy aging from different points of view, from psychological, spiritual, emotional point of view, but we didn't get to that today. Also, your relationship with your wife, lifelong relationship, because I'm really, really interested in all that. My particular point of interest is how to build long-term successful relationships, because I think that I believe there are certain distraction forces right now in the society that actually target the family unit, because when the families are not stable, then it becomes much easier to enslave people, because the family unit is kind of kind of a basic of society. So I'm personally very, very interested in building stable families and healthy aging and exercise, hearing more about that. But maybe we could do another webinar a few weeks from now. Maybe webinar-wise, we are booked about 1 month and a half or 2 months from now. But then we can just schedule a date and then we can discuss all those subjects later on. What do you think about that?
That'd be wonderful if your community wants that. I'd love to explore those other topics. I have a lot of passion for everything you mentioned there. I have passion for. So I'd love to explore with everyone.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that, and we'll be in touch. And just towards the end, I just want to ask you a little bit about your services. So we'll put all your contact details and your website, where people can get in touch with you to know more about your clinic. But could you, first of all, your clinic is located where?
I'm in Millis, Massachusetts, which is about an hour outside of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a solo practitioner. I focus on chiropractic care. I've been doing this for almost 40 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of passion about fitness. I teach fitness and movement, and along with the chiropractic care. So I'm involved in what's called a GMB fitness community. I'm a certified trainer with them, and OS Resets, which is a movement-based practice about connecting with movement patterns and things like that. I'm not active on social media. I don't post to Instagram. I have an Instagram account, but I posted about 30 times and then I stopped, and I haven't posted on it for years. So and I don't do TikTok. I don't do any of that. So you'll have my phone number and my office email. People have questions, or on my website. I have a lot of information on my website about fitness. There's some great articles from GMB. I have another page that talks about fitness video stuff that I teach, that people can look at and learn that way. And people are willing to call me or send me an email if they have a question or, just want some input on something.
Yeah, okay, very good. So we'll put everything below the video. And my last question is, in case some people want to inquire more into carnivore diet, into like low carb approach and stuff like that. What are the light materials? And it's not necessarily they will adopt this lifestyle, but they just want to kind of understand the mindset of this particular lifestyle, with this particular way of eating. So what would be, in your opinion, good materials for the people, even for vegans who just want to understand and to know the other side?
Right. So on my website, I have a resource page. If you go on my website and click on the resource page and then scroll down a little bit, I have a carnivore section that has various links to podcasts, to PDFs, to Facebook pages or whatever they call them, Facebook, whatever you
Yeah.
call it, books that I recommend so that'd be a good starting point.
Okay.
And you can click on those and get some input and feedback about carnivore, because there's many different ways of approaching it. Some are, are very inspirational. Some are, by neurosurgeon is talking about carnivore, cardiac surgeons talk about it. And then common folk that, just found they lost 150 pounds and they found carnivore saved their life that way, So there's a lot of different sources to get input about carnivore. So but on my website, we'll have a variety there. That's a good place to start, I think.
Excellent, excellent. And as I said, you will have Dr. Steven's website below the video. Okay, and then next time we can actually discuss more extensively exercise,
Yes.
Maybe we'll dedicate most of our next webinar to the subject of movement and exercise, because I understand you're also passionate about that.
That'd be great. I have a lot of passion about that.
Yeah.
At 72, I move better than I did. So I may not have the raw strength, but I move really well. And
Amazing.
I have a lot of passion. You're never too old. I use a phrase with my patients all the time: motion is lotion. And if you don't find ways to move that are right for your body, or if you do find ways that are right for your body, it will pay off as you age into your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. So
yeah,
I have a lot of passion around that.
Very good. Okay, Dr. Stevens, so thank you very much for participating and coming. Thank you very much for your inspiring talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for you guys, thank you very much. You were very respectful. Doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. Doesn't matter, because everyone is unique, and we are here to learn from each other. That's the most important thing. So bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.